have heard no many more times than I've heard yes, far more times than I've heard yes. And it's part of the journey, that it comes with the territory. And if you really love what you want to do, if you really are passionate about that dream, I always say that when those doors don't open for you, you kick them down.
Welcome to Detox with Dina and Friends. I'm your host, Dina Theodora, singer, songwriter, and actor. My aim for this podcast is to empower, motivate, and inspire you.
Hello, Miss Lovely Pooja.
Hi.
Thank you for coming on this beautiful rainy day. We bumped into each other how many times? Maybe like 1, 2, 3 times max, I think. And we just hit it off at the Motion Ball. That was it. Motion Ball brought us motion, and here we are.
Yes. Well, I mean, you have such a beautiful, bubbly personality. It's hard not to hit it off with you. I'm sure you connect with people all the time, but it was so exciting when I found out this is what you're doing, and I wanted to be a part of it.
And I'm so excited that you took this on, and that you took me on, and that you're here, and that you said yes. Without further ado, Pooja Handa's here, and I would love for you to introduce us to who you are and what you do, and to have our viewers and listeners kind of know more about Pooja.
Well, hopefully people wake up with me, which sounds weird, especially when my husband says it. He's like, yeah, half the city wakes up with my wife, and then he has to clarify what that means on a breakfast show on CP24. Yes, it's the #1 show in Toronto, so we know a lot of people are watching and waking up with us, which is fantastic. It's the place where you get your weather, your traffic, all your information, all your news in one place. But my job as the co-host is to do a lot of the celebrity interviews. So if any celebrity's in town promoting a movie or an album or whatnot, my job's to interview them. So it's really a dream job, because I sort of had to work my way in news to get to this point. But almost anybody will tell you that the place you want to be in news is a morning show, because it's where you can show off your personality if you have one.
Yes, and you do.
Right? It's a great platform to do that. You got to be bubbly. You have to be a morning person.
That's a good point.
And you want to put a smile on people's faces, because ultimately the news, people want it, but it can sometimes be a little dreary, and it's not always, it's sometimes a little heavy too. Not always something that you want to sit in. And so I really feel like my job is to brighten that part of your day and just make it a little bit better.
Amazing. And so you have been doing this for how long with CP24?
So I've been with CP24 for 12 years, but in the business for almost 20.
Wow.
So,
but you're a baby. What, 20 years?
Gotta say, I don't know, whatever the moisturizer I'm using has been working.
You go, girl. Yes, I love it.
I really age myself when I say that.
No.
But I also started really young. I started right out of school.
Wow.
My first job on TV was when I was 24.
Wow.
And, that's not usually how it happens.
Yep.
Usually you go to school, you graduate, you go and you work in a small market somewhere in Canada, a much smaller one than Toronto.
Yes.
And then you work your way towards Toronto, whereas my very first on-air job started in Toronto at
and so
young
you
age.
Basically knew, when getting involved as a host and so on, when you graduated, that this was something that you really wanted to get into from a young age, or did it just come?
Well, no, actually. So when I was younger, I thought I wanted to be an actress. So yes, so I went to an art school. So I auditioned to be in a school. It's called Carther Park. It's in Mississauga, and I majored in drama. Got in, and then at 18, I graduated a year early. So I sort of had this gap year to play with.
Wow.
And I moved to New York
smarty
City.
pants.
Yes, well, I tried. I was smarty pants for sure.
Wow.
I was an A student, honor roll.
Good for you.
But I moved to New York City, and I auditioned for the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, and I got in. So I went there for a year too, because I had this year to play with.
Yep.
But I realized when I was there that New York's very expensive, first and foremost. And, I didn't come from a family that could afford for me to be there. All of their savings, I blew it in 1 year there.
You had fun.
Yeah. Well, I wish it was that. It was tuition and books and
it's a lot.
all of that
It adds
stuff.
up.
It does. It adds up. So I couldn't really continue financially, and legally I couldn't work there because I was on a student visa.
Makes sense.
So all these things made me sort of reassess. Okay, I still want to be an actress, but maybe in the meantime, go get the education. What else can I do? What else would I be good at? And I thought, well, look, I'm a performer.
Yes.
And I have good marks. So why not sort of combine the two for broadcast journalism?
Good for you. So You just made it happen. And from that point, you started, as you said, doing the hosting. You were 24. And so you started you grew up within the city, right? And you started here. And then you went on to, was it the morning show or was it CP24?
Yeah,
right
so
after?
I was on a morning show at another station for 5 years as a traffic reporter and entertainment reporter.
Wow.
Then I moved on to CP24 and I did everything. So I did weather, I did traffic, I reported, I anchored the news. I sort of did all of those things for a very long time. And then I started hosting the weekend show. And then from the weekend show, about 6 years ago, I started hosting the weekday show Monday to Friday. So
that's
yeah,
amazing.
so hosting was the last thing I did, but it's the thing I love the most.
You know what? And you have such a beautiful, bubbly personality as well. And I think you bring so much passion you can see to your work. So I think people really enjoy it. And then I also, I think I saw something on one of your recent posts that you're doing the social as well, or some posts within that realm. Tell me about that.
So it's great because within Bell Media, there's lots of different platforms and lots of different places where you can really sort of, exercise other muscles and see what you can do outside of, news, which has been great. So for me, they've been really great at the social of letting me fill in. And, I'm just filling in, but even that little bit of having an audience, which I've never had before. I've always just stared into a camera.
It's like having the audience, but like you say, they're behind the camera, right? But now they're there, and it's like, how does that make you feel?
Oh, it's a completely different thing because you realize like the words you say, you hope that they resonate with people at home, but you don't know because there's no immediate response. Whereas when you have a live audience, you get to see, oh, okay, that people laughed.
They're
wow,
yeah, they get it.
I will tell you, there's a lot of times I say things, I'm like, I don't know if anybody's laughing. Maybe just me. And we don't even have cameramen in our studio on some of our main cameras. They're operated by an operations person who controls a robot. So they're all robots.
Okay.
So even the robot's not laughing at your joke.
Wow. So it's kind of like one of those things where you kind of fly off the seat of your pants and hope for the best.
Yeah. So it's nice. So I filled in on the social. I've been on Marilyn a few times as well, just for certain segments. So it's just nice to be able to explore other parts of yourself
That's
and
amazing.
to see, what that's like.
Marilyn Dennis. Oh my God. That's what I was once invited and I couldn't make it, but it looks like they had a lot of fun. So and you're also your co-host. Tell me about, because we bumped into him yesterday. Funny enough, how long have you been working together?
So we've been working together for quite some time. I would say almost 10 years, I think, that we've been working together. And when we met at CP24, we were just fast friends, like right away.
Hit it off.
And, in many ways, like he's my little brother.
Shout out to Gurdeep.
Shout out, Gurdeep.
Sorry that I stole your co-host. For I think he said it was for lunch.
Yeah, we were supposed to meet. And I was like, I have a podcast to do. No. So he's great. And we really do have that brother-sister relationship. So I'm always teasing him and he's always teasing me. But it really makes for great chemistry on air. And it's completely 100% authentic. So
and that's what you have to have, right? That great authenticity. But what was, related to the field, some challenges that you had to overcome, if you can think of anything either recent or, in the past, and how you got through it within the field? Well,
I think the one misconception is that when people watch you on TV, I think there's this glamour that's sort of attached to what they think the job is. They're like, oh, must be nice. You roll out of bed, somebody puts makeup on your hair, on your face, you get your hair done, and you get to interview celebrities. It sounds amazing. And it is. Don't get me wrong. It's a dream job. But my alarm's going off at 3 o'clock in the morning. So
that early.
So that means I'm in bed by 8. So what do you think that starts to do to your social life? What does that do to, my husband and our partnership? Like, we're not having dinner together. I'm asleep when he gets home. It's all very opposite. And then you still have family that you have to see and, be a part of their lives. And if you have to go to bed at 8 o'clock, how do you do that, right? So
that's amazing how you put that, because not everybody realizes the challenges of having to be at bed at 8 o'clock and wake up so early. But it shows you that you're passionate and that, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, it's work-life balance, which I think everybody can relate to. And I think on top of that, outside of what I do on TV, I still have a normal life where, I face adversity. I've dealt with health issues. I've dealt with, loss and, lots of things that I think people, if they really knew my story, would understand that I don't have a perfect life, far from it. But that little bit of time that you see me on TV for those 3 hours every morning, my job is to sort of leave that aside and, look at the bright side of things
Exactly.
and put a smile on people's faces.
You know
So
what? And like you say, it's like you got a job to deliver, you do it, and you don't bring anything into the door from that point on. And as they say, you're gonna kind of leave everything personal and just put a smile on.
And
so
it's therapeutic for me too,
it's amazing.
Yeah, to be able to have that connection with people who,
Yes.
we have interaction over social media now where people can write to you
Yes.
right away when they see something or, they're laughing at something or even if they don't like something.
That's it. And how do you deal with that? Because it's also that might be a challenge, I would say, because now in the day of social media, you might get comments, you might get obviously viewers that or listeners that want to comment on something or everything, let's say. And how do you deal with some of those? Let's say they're the trolls out there. How do you deal with that?
Well, so I always say that, there's no such thing as being perfect. We are all flawed humans.
Exactly.
So I'm going to make mistakes and there's no way that it's not going to happen when I'm on
Well
TV every day for, 4 hours of live television. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
So I actually appreciate when people are educating me or telling me something
Yeah.
that I didn't know. I appreciate that sort of constructive feedback.
Yep.
What I don't appreciate is when people are just mean. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you right now, I've been really fortunate. In 20 years, it's probably only ever happened a handful of times that somebody has written me just to be mean.
Really?
Where I don't really understand why somebody thinks that they can do that to another human being because they would never do that in real life, in person,
Wow.
face to face.
And it also makes you feel sorry, not like, and I was listening to something Gary Vee said, you get random people that are the trolls. And I mean, at least that's the 2020 lingo. But it's knowing that they're coming from a place that it's like maybe they're hurting so much that they have to speak in such a way. So it's also knowing not to take it personally, and that if somebody has to come across in that way, they're coming from somewhere maybe dark themselves.
I agree. And I always say you have no idea what people are going through and what they're battling and what they're experiencing. So sometimes those comments are coming from a place that really has nothing to do with you,
Yeah.
but you're the face that they see or, they're taking it out on you, whatever
Yeah.
it may be. And if that's the case,
That's it.
I always say in my mind, look, if you don't like me and you don't want to hear what I have to say, then you don't have to watch. You can change the channel.
There you go.
Right? We don't
Yeah.
have to continue this relationship if it's not working for you. But my job then is to not lash out and
Exactly.
do what they're doing.
Yep.
And sort of
Good on
stoop
you.
to their level. So I
That's-
just keep
There
it
you
moving.
go. As we put it, never stoop to their level.
Yeah, keep it moving.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, what would you say are some notes that you can have our listeners and viewers kind of get your opinion on women empowerment?
Well, I really wanted to come on your show for this reason because I do think that we need to see more of it, and
Yes.
there's never too much of it. But with that said, I don't think a lot of people realize that education-wise, while I do have a broadcast journalism diploma, I actually have a degree in women's studies. So
Wow.
I went
Oh
to
my
school
God.
for women's studies. So for me it's far more personal. It's not just about like girl power and like you go girl. It's really about walking the walk every day. And that means that from the moment I started in this business, it meant supporting other women. It meant, not seeing everybody as competition, that there's room for all of us. And
That's exactly.
yeah, and through, I think, mentorship, both ways, somebody mentoring me
Beautiful.
and me mentoring someone else, and those sort of stages.
See, it's almost like you say, like it's the whole cycle of everyone has something that that they have gifts and that they have beautiful things to offer, and it's a cumulative, effect.
Yeah, and you want to pay it forward. So,
Yep.
I'll never forget the women that were so good to me when I was 24 years old, right out of school, who had no idea what I was doing, who, offered to take me out to lunch or to show me the ropes or to critique, my performance and say, you're doing this really well, but this one you could really work on, because they cared about
Wow.
seeing me do well. And you don't forget those things, so that when it's your turn and you can pay that forward, then you want to do that as well.
So beautiful.
So I think I've sort of lived by that. And, you can find common ground with
Yep.
everyone and anybody. At the end of the day, there's room for everybody. And look, the cream rises to the top. So
Yeah.
you got to have the talent. You have to have the talent to back it up. That's why so much of it is not just supporting one another, but it's also helping one another get to that point. So
Yes.
if there's something that I can help you with, or there's something you can help me with,
That's it.
I want to know. I want to have an honest, authentic exchange so that we're making each other better.
Wow, I love that, and so it's so empowering, and I love women empowering women, and I wanted to bring that to light on this podcast and really have women from this community, but really globally, have a movement of having this cycle perpetuate. So on our relationship and advice talk with Madame Puja here.
Oh, where do we start?
Yes.
No.
Well, we could start a little slow, so we don't have to dive right in. But what is your definition? I would love to know, and I'm sure our listeners would love to know. What's your definition of a healthy relationship?
Well, it's interesting. If you asked me in my 20s, I'd probably have a different answer. If you asked me in my 30s, I'd probably have a different answer. And now that you're asking me in my 40s, this is my answer.
Oh my
so
God.
keep that in mind.
You are amazing.
Yeah, my answer now, I think, is really about having your best friend and finding that in your partner.
Yes.
It's where you actually want to be around one another and you miss them when you're apart. And it's one of those things where I hang out with my husband because he's my favorite person to hang out with.
That's amazing.
And it's great, and we have friends, and it's all fun. But at the end of the day, I'll look across the room at him, and I just want to be where he is because I know that everybody around him is having that much fun because he's just such a great guy. And so when I first met him, one of the things I said to him was, we're on like date 2, which is probably not good advice to bring this up on date 2, but
It's okay. We'll take it with a grain of salt.
I think I broke a lot of rules on date 2. But anyway, I said to him, I've always wanted to have that relationship, and maybe this sounds silly and maybe it sounds like it's romanticized, but I've always just wanted to feel like the luckiest girl in the room. And I've been married for almost 7 years now, and I still feel like the luckiest girl in the room.
Yay!
Yes.
You go, girl.
Yes.
You know what? What's your husband's name?
Paul.
You go, Paul.
He's great.
That's amazing. And that's so beautiful that you said having that as the forefront, friendship and really having each other's back, having them be, your cheerleader on your roughest days and vice versa. What are some red flags for you? Anything that you've been through? I mean, anything that you can, give your younger self advice, or, girls going through something that, let's say, they got to watch out for in red flags.
I think that so much of what I appreciate in who I am in my relationship now is that I've really taken the time, because I'm as old as I am now, to really get to know myself.
Young as you feel,
yes,
girl.
right. But to really look inward and be really reflective of, okay, so what is it that I bring to the table? What is it that I tend to do? What are my flaws? What are some of the things that I can work on so I can be the best Puja, regardless of whether I have a partner or not? It has nothing to do with them. It has to do with me being the best version of myself.
You, yes.
And because I've worked on that part, I feel like when you're in a relationship where somebody's taking away from that, or you're no longer seeing the best version of yourself, that's probably a red flag, because you have to know yourself really well.
Wow.
But flaws and all, right?
You know what? You are saying it even better than I could say it, because I was always, since I've come to a point in realization that's one of the most important things that you can do is work on yourself before you end up with someone in your life. Because yes, you're constantly learning and growing, but when you're doubting yourself in the beginning, or you have so many insecurities, then you bring that in a relationship, it can affect, and vice versa, the man, the woman. So like you said, you got to really know yourself so that you can allow for the other person to bring out the best in you, vice versa.
Yeah, and how do you pick someone, right?
Yeah.
Unless you know yourself the way you should, sometimes your picker is off. Sometimes you're just picking the wrong people because they're serving something, a deficiency or something that perhaps if you took that time to really reflect about, why am I this way? Why do I like this? Why do I feed off of that energy? I know it's bad for me, but I still always go for somebody like that.
Wow.
What is that? And then tackle that yourself.
Wow, I love how you put that, because you're really looking into it on an opposite spectrum. It's like things that you need to work on, and then somebody comes in your life, and then it's like, no, I need to really work on this area of my life because am I feeding something that I shouldn't be feeding, or am I allowing someone to bring out the best in me? That's amazing. That's great. I love that. Thank you for saying that.
You're welcome. It works for me. I don't know if that works for anybody else.
No, but it's such a great point that you brought up, and something that I think a lot of people miss out on, unfortunately. You know, not looking for the right things and those red flags. What are 3 main factors that are important to you in a relationship?
Okay, so I am a big proponent of being honest. And, you know, people will sometimes say, oh, well, you know, you don't really want them to be honest, right? Like, if I don't look good in this outfit, lie to me. Tell me I do. No, I really want to know what you think. I like honesty. I do think words matter. So, you know, how you say it could be the difference.
That's it.
But still be honest with me. Just tell me the truth.
Yes.
I think that's really important. I do also think, and it's not something that I thought about when I was younger, but the way you talk to your partner, especially in front of people, you know, that sort of mutual respect.
Yep.
How many times have you been out with other couples and you just, you know, they're screaming at one another or they say horrible things, and whether that's just their way, and it doesn't even mean that they mean it. It makes everybody uncomfortable. And, you know, people will start to look at you a certain way of like, oh, what's going on there? Is this healthy? You know, you start to ask all those questions. And to me, it's really important that if this person really is your best friend, I would never do that to my best friend. So why is it okay to do that to my partner?
That's it.
You know, so that sort of mutual respect is very important.
Mutual respect.
And I think you just have to really be on the same page when it comes to your values. And, you know, as long as you're both on the same page with that, I think everything else you can work out.
Those are there. No deal breakers. When you got those, I love that. Yeah, you got same page all the time. It's otherwise you're kind of going from one to the next, walking on eggshells, right?
And look, my husband and I, we have lots of disagreements. He's a lawyer, so I'm never winning an argument ever, because he can just argue it because he can argue it better than I can.
That must be interesting. It's like, how do you win the argument?
Oh, and there's no winning. So I mean, you learn that there's no winning, which is fine. That's not what it's supposed to be about. But I have learned that, you know, we have lots of disagreements, but at the end of the day, our value system is the same. So I always know, even though I may not understand fully his perspective, I know that, you know, he's coming from a good place. I know he's looking out for me. So it does actually open my eyes to, well, maybe there's more to this point, and I'm not seeing it right now. Maybe I need a few hours. Maybe I need to get away from you for a few minutes so that I can like figure it out. But
that's amazing.
There is something there, and I have to trust that, you know, it's in my best interest.
Well,
even though I don't agree with it.
Ladies, you heard it from the lovely Pooja. Relationships and advice. So before we close, I want to know a little bit about projects that right now that you have. Anything specific? Are you working on any projects? Are you doing anything in the community that's new? Or, you know, let us know what you're currently working on.
So I just launched my own website. So it's PoojaHanda.com.
There you go.
And it was, you know, it's been a sort of a year in the making, because I've always talked about doing it, and then I finally did the work, because so much of what I've been doing for the last 20 years that people don't know about is that, you know, I've been out in the community hosting charity events. I've been out in the community going to schools and doing, you know, some motivational speaking.
Any in particular we might know of?
Well, I've sort of been doing it throughout the years, but what I really want to do now, and the point of launching the website, was making it a concerted effort to be sort of the next phase of my career. I'm still always going to be on the breakfast show, but beyond that, just having, you know, a place to connect with the community, because I've realized that when I actually meet young people, when I meet people who watch the show, or just people in the community in general, people in the South Asian community, you know, I'm from India, so
beautiful.
When I meet, you know, people of all walks, I find that connection, it's just so special, and it's so gratifying.
Yes.
You know,
because you feel fulfilled. You're like, you're rewarded because you're giving back, you're reaching out to people, and it's like that beautiful reciprocation.
Yeah. So a lot of what I want to do now, and, you know, the next few projects are going to be centered around that. You'll see a lot more speaking, and you're going to see also stuff with students who are graduating out of broadcast journalism courses. I really want to help.
You're giving, like you said, the mentorship, right? It's going full circle. That's beautiful that you're able to reach out like that and make an impact. Like you said, studying women's studies. Funny enough, I'm actually studying women's studies, women and gender right now.
You are?
I just
Awesome.
figured, I have to just do my passion. And I love studying, about human rights. Women's studies has always been on my mind, just like this podcast. So when you said that, it hit a stroke there.
Good
so,
for you. Proud of you.
Aw,
That's
thank
great.
you, my doll. So, so in closing, I just want to say thank you so much for being here. And I would love to leave our viewers and listeners with a little tidbit of if there's one of the hardest or greatest things that you've had to overcome in your success, with broadcasting, speaking, hosting, what would it be? And yeah.
I guess, one of the things I always tell people who really struggle, whether it's in this business or whether it's in another field, where they feel like, look, I've tried everything and it wasn't good enough. Or, maybe I need to change my mind and do something else and not follow my dream. I say to all those people that I have struggled too, that I have heard no many more times than I've heard yes, far more times than I've heard yes. And it's part of the journey, that it comes with the territory. And if you really love what you want to do, if you really are passionate about that dream, I always say that when those doors don't open for you, you kick them down.
I love
That's
that.
really how I feel about it, because those doors aren't going to always open. And people say, oh, one door closes, another one opens. Well, sometimes one door closes and you're waiting for that other door to open and it doesn't open. And you're like, knock, knock. And you're knocking.
But see, this is why I wanted to bring light to this podcast, because like you said, you just got to keep knocking, because sometimes things don't always happen the way that you think they might, but there's still that you just got to keep going.
Yeah.
So that message
or
is
a workaround, like if this isn't working, then I'm going to do this. Or if that's not working, then I'm going to try this. And when I've exhausted that, then I'm going to do this. And you know what, if they don't see it, then I'm going to show them that. Or you know what, I'm going to take an extra course and I'm going to work on this. Like, you can keep going and in how you attack that door.
So I love how you worded that with, you got to keep knocking those doors down and you got to be resilient, because like you said, the more no's just means yeses are going to come. You got to go through the no's to get through the yeses.
For sure. And you'll be better for it, because hopefully what you do is you think about, well, why did they say no? And you hold up that mirror and you go, okay, what can I do better? How do I work on this skill? How do I hone it so that the next time you come, you're that much better? And the time after that, when you come at it or you go somewhere else, that you're that much better. And that's, if you look at most people who are really successful in their fields, they have the talent to back it up, right? They've done the work. So as long as you keep doing the work, you'll be able to kick down the door with confidence, because you'll be able to say, you know what, I have the talent, and if you don't see it, that's fine. But I know, because I've put in the work.
Yes. Just like you put in the work and you are where you are and you're doing so well. And I want to thank you again for being here. Where can people find you?
So on Instagram, I'm Pooja Handa TV. On Twitter, Pooja Handa TV as well. Or you can go to my website, poojahanda.com.
Well, here we have it, everyone. Thank you for joining us. The very lovely Pooja Handa.
Bring it in. Yes.
Thanks again for joining in. Make sure to subscribe, like, share, and comment below. Make sure to also find us on Instagram @DetoxWithDina and my personal page @Dina Theodora. Stay tuned and catch you next time.